A specialist in ethics, values, and corporate issues to come and talk to our inductees today. Most of the time, we try to get outsiders to come and talk to us so that there's this interrelationship. And there's also this appreciation of things that happen around us. And that people from other expertise can also come and enrich us, enrich our knowledge, and also build this bond of friendship and good marketing for the profession. So we will listen to our guest speaker in due course, who will talk to the inductees and also all of us. And I want to thank you all and welcome you.
Right.
And
let's have a citation.
And I hope that we'll enjoy our stay in Abuja for the next 2 days. Thank you very much.
Please, a round of applause for the President once again. All right, super. Now, if you have inductees here, if you're an inductee here, can you please show yourself by clapping? Inductees? Oh, interesting. Interesting. Let's try one more thing. Inductees, can you rise up and stand? Stand, stand, stand. Please, a round of applause for these ones. A round of applause. Super. Please, you may be seated. You may be seated. You know, recently there was an exchange, and somebody was trying to tell somebody that if you are calling me by first name, I'll tell you my history in the profession. For you inductees as well, some of us are here that we can tell you our history in the professions too. So please respect us accordingly. But you are welcome on board. I did not say anything, right? I have not said anything, but it's a good thing to be here. Ladies and gentlemen, it is one of our duties when we have events like this to actually mention some few things which I skipped earlier, and I'll just try and quickly go through them. First and foremost is the safety regulations around us. As much as possible, please hold on to your valuables. The phone is a mobile phone, so it means it's supposed to be mobile. It moves around with you. So as much as possible, please hold on to your mobility. And if you find any missing item around you, you can please call my attention or that of Qsrbn or any other officials. The restroom is behind us. You move straight outside there, behind, and turn, I believe, you find the restroom. If there's any fire, in case of any fire or any need for us to evacuate this all very quickly, the muster point is outside behind you, but you can go through that end as well, just for us to be conscious. Ladies and gentlemen, please clap for me. All right. Please, I would like to welcome up here now. Some say the twin of the board. Some say the board came, the twin came before the board, or the board came before the twin. But they always be together. Thank God for synergy. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call up here for his own remarks the President of the Nigerian Institute of Quantity Surveyors, please, with a sounding round of applause, QS Olaimi Shonubi, FNIQS, for his remarks. Please clap for Mr. President. Please, it is important that you clap. For my own sake as well. It is important for my sake. I know what I'm saying.
Thank you very much, Bolaji. As a matter of fact, the Nigerian Institute of Quantity Surveyors is actually the parent of the Quantity Surveyors Registration Board of Nigeria. The NIQS was founded in 1969, and they fought strenuously to make sure that the board was set up through an act in 1986. So you can see that we are actually the parents, although our child now controls us, but we thank God for his mercies. You know, sometimes you say when you get to a certain age, you will be led by your son or by your child. And I think that is what is happening here. Well, the representative of the Honorable Minister of Works and Housing, the president of the Quantity Surveyors Registration Board of Nigeria, my own dear senior brother, the Mutawale Gombe, KOS Mutala Mohammed Aliu, the members of the board of the Qsrbn, the members of the National Executive Council here present, invited guests, fellows in our midst, the corporate members, our dear inductees. It's indeed a delight for me to stand here before all of you, and I must congratulate the new inductees. And I think you also needed to congratulate yourself, and I think you deserve to clap for yourself like the Bolaji has said. All of you have come a long way to get to this point today, where you are now being officially licensed. Yes, we did induction for you. We admitted you into our own body, the NIQS. But here, you are now being given the license to practice. And I hope you understand the implication. Like I say everywhere, one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. Quantity surveying is a very noble and highly esteemed profession that those who handed it over to us, those who founded the NIQS in 1969, they worked tirelessly to hand it over to us. They guarded the image of the profession. And I want to admonish all of you, as you are going to be inducted to practice, please continue the legacy, within the legacy that have been laid down for all of us. That is to practice with honesty and integrity, with respect for your professional colleagues. And I'll say that again, with respect, utmost respect for your professional colleagues. I've had instances of quantity surveyors who are in consulting, who rubbish their colleagues in contracting. I've heard of instances of quantity surveyors who work with client organization, who undermine their colleagues who work in consulting. I've heard of fellow consulting quantity surveyors who try to undermine each other. Please, as you are coming in, I want to admonish you not to follow that path. We all have this profession to protect. I don't think, well, there are some who have gone to study some other things and maybe are now barristers or what have you. But for some of us, the only profession that we have and we cherish and which we will practice until we die is quantity surveying. So please, I want to beg and appeal to you as you join us, make sure that you help us to maintain that integrity. I'm sure in the course of this assembly, we'll also talk about how do we ensure that the future is bright for you. Feel free to ask questions if need be. Feel free to consult your senior colleagues if you have doubts. Once again, I congratulate you all and I wish you a wonderful time in the profession. God bless you all.
Please, once again, a round of applause for QS Michael Olayemi Shonubi for his remarks. Thank you.
Sir.
Great. You know, as a speaker of the house, one of the few things I can also say or do is to they take the principles of engagement, right? There was once an Esau and a Jacob that because of maybe moi moi or tuwo or something decided to come below and the Jacob went ahead. I wouldn't want to discuss the issue further, but this is for one reason or the other. If the younger one is now leading, maybe the senior one too had, I won't say anything. Just so that my certificate is not missing somewhere. Ladies and gentlemen. All right. I think one of the beauty we have in the Qsrbn profession is the synergy that really has carried us between the board and the institute. And really it has propelled us to greater heights in the built environment as a whole. So I would really like to thank the president of the board and the president of NIQS for that continuity in making sure that the profession keeps growing and looks far above who is who. A round of applause for the gentlemen again, once again. All right, inductees. This is one of the very few moments, quite important for me, if I would say, part of this assembly. And we're going to go into the induction speech. It is important that you all are here, not just here, you are listening. And to the members we have joining us online as well, it's also important that you do not miss out of this information that is about to come from the table of our guest speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest speaker today is a managing consultant with Tenable Concepts Limited. And the core of what she does is about change management from the human perspective point of view, cultural orientation, intentional culture management, change, orientation, the human mind. The guest speaker over time has distinguished herself in these areas. And I have no doubt that in addressing this topic on ethical conduct, professionalism, and general expectation of professional quantity surveyors, she is more than prepared to do justice to this presentation. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a pleasure to welcome up here our guest speaker, Mrs. Esther Dolong, for our presentation. Please, a round of applause for her. Please clap. Where are the women? Please, no, the men. Rest. And the women as well. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your presence.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Permit me to stand on existing protocol. Just a few minutes while I see how the PowerPoint comes up. PowerPoint. Can someone? Okay. Okay, while we're waiting for the PowerPoint. While we're waiting for the PowerPoint to come up, I just want to say that it's an honor and a privilege for me to be able to address you today at the beginning and the continuation of what we hope and pray will be a fulfilling, fruitful, and prosperous career for all of you. As quantity surveyors, you're custodians of recognized specialist skills. It's not just a career, but you're being inducted into a profession, and there are additional responsibilities and expectations that come with being part of a profession. Now, the genesis of professions, they're one of society's most important institutions because they're the specific social structures by which the society can enjoy and have a measure of control over the use of your specialized knowledge and skills. It's particularly true when highly valued aspects of human life depend on such expertise, as in your case. Because construction, of which you are an integral part, is the process through which the entire built environment is created. In fact, the modern construction sector in Nigeria is providing the means by which the new Nigeria will be built. So the level of its performance and your performance will contribute to the quality of life for the current generation, as well as determine the future legacy. So since it's the quantity surveyor's responsibility to manage all the costs associated with construction and building, you're actually more than cost accountants. You're the custodians of people's hopes that their money will be judiciously used and the end product will stand the test of time. And being a profession, it recognizes that acquiring your expertise requires lengthy theoretical education and intensive training. So you have an exclusive set of knowledge. That is the genesis of creating the institutions of professions, not just quantity surveying profession, medical profession, legal profession, etc. I have a slide up there. It says a professional is a member of a profession or any person who earns a living from a specified professional activity. The term also describes the standards of education and training that prepares members of the profession with the particular knowledge and skills necessary to perform their specific roles within that profession. In addition, most professionals are subject to strict codes of conduct that enshrine rigorous ethical and moral obligations. Professional standards of practice and ethics for a particular field are typically agreed upon and maintained through widely recognized professional associations, in your case, NIQS and Qsrbn. Okay. I'm having a problem with moving. Is there someone who can help me with the slides? Is there someone who can help me with the slides? Because the remote is not working. Okay, I'll continue. Now, in a lot of people's minds, an induction ceremony like this, people believe that it's by publicly taking an oath that a person becomes a professional and acquires specific professional obligations. By the Latin word professio means to declare publicly. So today you're not just taking an oath, you're presenting yourselves to others as possessors and practitioners of a profession's expertise. And you're declaring publicly that you're members of a profession and you accept the ethical commitments of that profession as your own. So the oath today is also a reminder that as you begin professional practice, that important ethical commitments go with it. And it's also a public assurance to the larger community and to the public by yourselves that you understand and accept that reality. Some people say that the vocation or calling of the committed professional is precisely a social vocation. By that I mean a calling to ethical relationships with your clients, with those you serve, in the context of your relationship with the larger community. In fact, this practice of specialized expertise and the special moral commitments associated with professional practice, they are the things that differentiate a profession from other occupations. What differentiates a professional from just a trader who's hawking his wares or his knowledge is the fact that there are commitments and obligations that go with it. The way you conduct yourself, the way you deliver your service, and the general level of service that the public will expect. Now, there are key... Okay. Sorry, you've gone ahead. There are a couple of slides before that. Now, there are key features of a profession. It's not easy to distinguish what makes a profession, but you'll find that there are essential elements. The first one being that you have important and exclusive expertise. Okay. Front to back. Which one's front? This is the front. Okay. As I was saying, there are key features to a profession. As I go through them, you'll recognize why quantity surveying is a profession. There's important and exclusive expertise. For an occupational group to be a profession, it must provide its clients with something that the larger community judges extremely valuable, either because of its intrinsic value or because it's a necessary precondition of any person's achievement of valued goals. There must be internal and external recognition. Internal relationships, of which the most important is the mutual recognition of expertise on the part of its members. It's internal recognition like this that is informed an occasion like this today. And then also external recognition to the larger community. For that, your certificates and your licenses come into play. The third one being autonomy in matters of expert practice. Those served by a profession routinely grants its members extensive autonomy in the performance of the profession's practice. For example, if someone takes on a quantity surveyor, they're going to give you full reign to do your work. They're not going to be interfering. They're going to be interested in the end product. But how you arrive at the end product is up to you and up to your own particular style and way of doing things. And then the final, and for present purposes, the most important feature of the institution of profession is that membership in a profession implies the acceptance by its members of a set of ethical standards of professional practice. We'll be going into that in a bit more detail. So what are the kind of professional norms that we're talking about that guide your conduct, that guide your way of delivering your services? There's some questions that you need to have at the back of your mind, and briefly stated, the 9 categories of questions about professional obligations are: who are the profession's chief clients? What are the central values of your profession? I know that your profession has some guiding values. What is the ideal relationship between a member of this profession and a client? One of the things that immediately comes to mind is transparency, honesty. Now, what sacrifices are required of members of this profession, and in what respects do the obligations of this profession take priority over other morally relevant considerations affecting its members? What are the norms of competence for this profession? I know that apart from your degree, I know that there are various professional exams and continuous improvement programs that both NIQS and QSRBN have for quantity surveyors to take. What is the ideal relationship between the members of this profession and co-professionals? Now, since your profession doesn't exist in a vacuum, you work with architects, you work with engineers, and the rest of it, the way in which you relate to them is also important. What is the ideal relationship between members of this profession and the larger community? What ought the members of this profession do to make access to the profession's services available to everyone who needs them? I think this is an important one for quantity surveyors. I think you'll find that a lot of people are not quite sure of what quantity surveyors do and the value that they bring to the table. I think I'm correct that when people are, or even individuals, are wanting to build a building, they don't necessarily think that they need a quantity surveyor. And I think that there's an opportunity to build awareness about the value that you bring to the table and the difference that you make, especially in light of the things that we've seen happen in recent times. What are the members of this profession obligated to do to preserve the integrity of their commitment to its values and to educate others about them? So, I've highlighted that it's ethics that distinguish a professional from a common trader. So we need to look closer at what is ethics. Ethics refers to a standard governing the conduct of a person or members of a profession. There are three aspects to ethics: how you discern right from wrong, doing what is right, and to capture it all, ethics is action, the way you practice your value system. It's a guidance system, almost like your internal compass that you use in making decisions. Now, when we come together like this and we start talking about ethics, it can seem very abstract. It can seem like it's difficult to relate it to my everyday actions. But you'll find that when you begin to investigate it at a deeper level and interrogate ethics, you'll find that a lack of ethics is actually the bane of Nigeria right now. It is what has led us to where we are. So let's look at the impact of the lack of ethics to help us understand the importance of ethics. And I'm going to look at it from a macro perspective, from a national perspective, and highlight certain things that we're all very, very familiar with. Every time a police officer receives a bribe to cover up an issue, it encourages disobedience to law, which ultimately fuels the breakdown of law and order. You also have police extortion toll gates. Health professionals who divert medical supplies from public institutions where they're to be administered to the sick, they may benefit from their ill-gotten wealth, but their actions increase health-related problems in the society and impacts negatively on national productivity. I'm sure that most of you, like me, you have a large extended family. I had a cousin who was a victim to something like this. She was pregnant, went to the hospital, was given expired drugs. It put her she lost the baby, and apart from that, it caused a lot of other health issues for her. And investigating that, we discovered that when the drugs come to the hospital, the matron takes the drugs, and she has a pharmacy in town where she sells them. And when they're almost at their expiry date, she brings them back to the hospital to be used. So most of the drugs within the hospital are about to expire or already expired. Slow movement of files in offices, public service officers who engage in over-invoicing, in connivance with contractors to loot the public treasury. They're diverting resources which should be deployed to provide physical and social infrastructure to improve the living standards of the average Nigerian. The ghost worker syndrome. The ghost worker syndrome. At the inception of IPPIS in Kaduna, I happened to be there, and I went to see some people that I know, and I happened to hear a conversation going on next to me. And there was a civil servant there who was bemoaning the fact that he had 80 ghost workers. He had had 80 ghost workers, and he'd been enjoying that for about 5 years. And now, because of IPPIS, he didn't have them anymore. So his lament was, how am I now supposed to take care of my family, my siblings, my parents, my people in the village? He didn't see anything wrong with what he was doing. He felt that something bad had been done to him. Now that is an indication of how far from what is right, you know, some people in Nigeria have gone, and I think the general about that is that there's been so much conversation about what happened, the lack of regulatory oversight and the rest of it. But a lot of people believe, because you are associated, you are the profession that's most closely associated with costings of any project, that I heard people saying, let's see the quantity surveyors' bill of estimates, let's see their BOQ. Which quantity surveyors were attached to this job? Now, as more and more has come out about that Ikoyi building collapse, it's become clear that the developer was developing this building by direct labor, and that there were a lot of shortcuts. I'm not even sure whether he actually employed the services of a quantity surveyor, but the perception of the public is important, and it's important to you, because it's what you're going to be working against when you're marketing your services or when people come to you for work. Now, there are dangers and consequences of unethical behaviors. Unethical conduct, immorality, or negative values are devoid of ethical benchmarks. They're dangerous social evils. They're damaging to the society to the extent of leading to a failed state. And like all forms of things that are wrong, the dangers are multifaceted, and some of them concrete. For example, loss of international credibility. It's interesting that the title of the theme of this annual assembly is Shaping the Future of the Quantity Surveying Profession. Now, quantity surveying is local, but it's also global, just like everything else. And in terms of growing and sustaining the profession, I know that the board is looking to not just deepening the quantity surveying profession within Nigeria, but also cross-border alliances. And when you look at that, you find that one of the reasons that people are reluctant to come into any form of alliance with a Nigerian company or with Nigerians is specifically because of these issues that we are talking about. I believe it was at one of quantity survey events where I talked about the potential of marketing the services of a Nigerian quantity surveyor to other countries within the West African sub-region that are enjoying a construction boom. For example, Equatorial Guinea, some of these countries that are new affluents, but we found that they would prefer to bring in professionals from Europe and South Africa, rather than coming to what should be the obvious place, Nigeria. And it's specifically because of these issues that we are discussing here today. So there's a loss of international credibility, educational certificates. people who have graduated in Nigeria, let's say doctors, lawyers, even if they've practiced here for 10 years and they want to relocate, the fact that they have a Nigerian certificate or that they were trained in Nigeria, they find that they have to go through certain qualification requirements that other people don't have to. Because the assumption is that they may have bought this degree, or someone else might have sat for them, or all the things that we know can happen within our educational system. Financial institution documents are disrespected. I remember there was a time when in the UK came out with a list of people that they would not open bank accounts for, and they had things like people who'd been convicted of so crimes, people who were money launderers, and then at the bottom of the list it said, all Nigerians. All Nigerians, specifically because of these kind of issues. Business becomes risky and costly. Agreements with government are suspect. International partners keep us at a distance. I've spoken about that. Reduction in the quality of goods and services. Let me just stay there for a minute. I believe it was on Boxing Day. Next supermarket went up in flames. And that is the supermarket that I use. That is where I do 80% of my shopping. And I've become very, very friendly with the security guards, all the different people that work there. So it really hit home, especially when I began to hear about how their lives have changed since this thing happened. But I was trying to find out what actually caused it. And what caused it? This is what I've been told. I don't have a certificate to say this is what caused it. But, you know, it was around the Christmas period, so people had imported a lot of goods, because the belief is that around Christmas, people spend a lot. So there was a light fitting, one of these fairy light type of things. Is someone raising their hand? Sorry. Light fitting or so. And that caught fire. And from that spark, it began to spark, and before they knew it, it had taken over the whole of the shop. And then, just about a month ago, a cousin of mine in Kano, at about 3 a.m., an extension cable in his house caught fire. Within 30 minutes, 80% of the house had burnt down. His wife had to jump from the balcony. He barely came down with a ladder, and the burns on his head, his scalp, all the hair on his head burnt off. And that's because the extension cable itself that's being sold here in Nigeria would not pass the standards set in, let's say, the UK, the US, Dubai, or countries where the standard organization are up and doing. Companies cut corners to improve profit margins, culture of late or delayed payments, healthcare risks, loss of foreign investment that could lead to economic growth, loss of the value of the dignity of hard work, inability to develop tourist potential. Even the lack of ethics has crept into our religious institutions. Lack of deep thinking and shallowness. There was a particular consultancy I was working on, so I happened to be speaking to somebody who headed a multinational company here in Nigeria. And he was telling me that I don't know whether you remember some years back, when multinationals began to relocate to places like Ghana, and most of us thought it was because of the high cost of power in the country and the epileptic power supply. And the manager of Dunlop and Cadbury's, they said to him, well, that is a problem, but we can always pass the additional cost on to consumers. The real problem that we're facing, and we've noticed this over the last couple of years, is that the way we are structured is that there's certain middle management positions that have to be filled by Nigerians. And we've noticed that over the years, it's becoming harder and harder to find the quality talent coming out of the universities. Yes, they have the degrees. Yes, they have the qualifications. But there's a total lack of critical thinking, problem solving, and depth to what they're able to do. And that's also comes because of the shortcut mentality that has become prevalent in our society, and the lack of appreciation of hard work, and the fact that it takes time, it takes application in anything that you are doing. And then we have what we call policy mirage. By policy mirage, I mean when you have, and it's something that's very, very common in what they call the global south, the global south in development terms. That's where, you talk about something and you use the language, and you believe that just by talking about it and using the language is the same as actually doing it. So that's why it's called policy mirage. So now that we've looked at unethical conduct on a macro level, on a societal level, and I'm doing this to make it personal, to bring it home to you, an understanding of how the daily decisions that you make and the way you choose to do things has an impact. All of us long for Nigeria to achieve its potential. All of us long for a society that children can grow up in and have an opportunity to become everything that they want to be, and for the system to work. So, as custodians of the people's finances, you're actually the ethical spine of the construction industry. Now, just like the spine of a human being, without a functioning spine, you can't stand up. You can't function. The rest of your body parts depend on your spine. It's the same thing with quantity surveyors. I'll just go through the list. You have bid rigging and collusion tendering. You probably know these ones better than I. Conflict of interest, disclosure of the confidential project baseline, nepotism, insincerity to clients and other professionals, concealing of your professional errors, wrong information with intention to mislead, incompetency and overstating qualifications to secure the job, bribe taking, colluding with contractors, failure to submit essential documents promptly, inflating quantities in bill of quantities, inflating the contract sum, charging clients for work that you have not done, revealing official secrets, collusion with other professionals, using poor quality goods. What does this lead to? Dissatisfied clients, late compensation due to delays, low productivity, efficiency of your project team, deterioration in professionalism, poor workmanship, high maintenance, upward review of contract costs, poor project coordination, poor quality infrastructure development, the stunted growth of your industry, reduction in the lifespan of building, loss of public trust, and conflicts between the client and the construction team. So we can conclude that ethical principles have a commercial value, or more importantly, the absence of commercial values has a commercial cost that can be devastating. So the focus in education is always on the technical competencies. And more people are beginning to realize that there are certain personal attributes, we call them character competencies, that are actually more important because they determine how you will use the technical competencies that you have. The personal attributes that we're talking about, they're like the soil. And anybody who's a farmer will know that the crop you get is only as good as the soil. That's why a farmer takes a lot of time working on the preparation of his soil, making sure it has the right nutrients, the right water, everything that it needs to support the growth of the plant. In the same way, it's important that our educational institutions also begin to emphasize the personal attributes that underlie any expertise. So, in conclusion, competency for construction professionals is generally agreed to comprise of two elements: the actual performance of a required skill and the personal attributes which underlie such performance. There is no doubt that technical knowledge in the required area of a profession is crucial when working in all aspects of the construction industry, including quantity surveying. But there's a growing belief that the personal attributes of character, values, and attitude are more important in optimizing performance in the industry. Hence the focus of this talk. The importance of individual values, ethical conduct, is an essential element in developing a better practice culture in the construction industry. These aspects determine the attention to detail and the quality of the finished work. However, emphasis of learning for quantity surveyors has traditionally focused on technical and performance knowledge, which is regarded as a necessity, with less consideration on approaches to internalize and establish ethical values and conduct into the professionals. I know that the leadership of the quantity surveying profession are looking at how they can incorporate ongoing ethics education at different stages of a quantity surveyor's life. And I believe that conversation is still ongoing. So how do we maintain ethics? Now, there are actually two policemen of ethics, and we are more familiar with the external policemen of ethics. That is ethics codes, codes of conduct, contracts, regulations, enforcement, as well as the fear of reputation loss. Now, current thinking has recognized that ethics codes on their own can only go so far. They cannot cover every single scenario that a quantity surveyor or any other professional will face. And they also do not make a bad person good. And what we found is that, especially in Nigeria, because Nigerians are very, very creative, they find ways of going around the ethics code to do what they wanted to do in the first place. That's why continuing ethics education is important. Now, the second policeman of ethics is the internal policeman, what we call the conscience. And that is like a muscle. So when we talk about ongoing ethics education, we're talking about, it's almost like a muscle, an internal muscle that nobody can see, and it's strengthening that part of your character to do the right thing and to withstand the pressure and to go against the flow, especially if you find yourself in a situation where everybody's doing things in a particular way, and your own internal moral compass tells you that this is not what you want to do, this is not the right thing to do, you're not doing the right thing by your client. You need internal strength. And that internal strength has to be practiced. It's just like going to a gym and you want to build muscles. You don't build the muscles in day one. You have to continuously practice. And the continuous practice comes by applying your code or applying your own principles and your own value system to situations that you find yourself in. Now, what are the benefits of ethics? You stand out amongst the crowd. You're better positioned to manage strategic alliances internationally, and you have a greater and more loyal customer base. Just to bring it home, you find that people will trust you. For example, everybody's looking for a trustworthy mechanic, and they're willing to pay more for a trustworthy mechanic. A mechanic who will actually tell you what is actually wrong with your car, will actually tell you the cost of the parts, and will actually, show you the difference between here's the cost of his labor and the cost of of the parts, and will actually tell you the implications of not changing the parts. And you find that you go back to him more and more, and you'll even be willing to pay a little bit more. You'll actually recommend him to other people. It's the same thing in your profession. So like I said, yes, having a code of ethics without creating an ethical culture and a comprehensive ethics program is like having a Ferrari without wheels. It looks good, but you're not going anywhere. So, I want to talk about a quality that is important in everything that we're speaking about. And that's the quality that I call personal responsibility. I've outlined to you some of the factors that have led us to where we are. And what I find a lot of us, and even myself doing, is we tend to say, when this happens, then I'll do this. When we have the right leader, when this system is working, when I get the right pay, or I have the right boss, or I'm in the right job, the job that I want, then I'll actually address these issues. And so what we're doing is disconnecting from the issue and refusing to take ownership and personal responsibility of the situation, and refusing to recognize that our own individual choices, what we're doing on a daily basis, is either contributing to the problem or addressing the problem. So the question now is, who will stop the slide? Is it worth it to you individually? Is it worth it corporately? Is it worth it as a profession? Now, I know that from conversations with the leadership that they're putting in place different things to address the ethical issues of quantity surveyors. But you don't have to wait till that is done, because when you have a strong personal ethic, it's much easier to connect to your professional code of ethics. And so one of the things that you can do going forward, even before the leadership come up with the different programs that they have in mind, is to intentionally develop your own personal code of ethics. Now, your personal code of ethics is actually a summary of who you are as a person. Who you are as a person. So take some time to think about, who am I? Even who do I want to be? How do I want to live this life? The truth of the matter is that there is only this life that we have to make a mark. And how the choices we make on a daily basis determines the legacy that we leave. The legacy we leave for our family, the name that we leave for our family, and the legacy we leave in our profession. So there are a few things that you can start doing. Sorry. What is a personal ethics statement? It's a statement developed by an individual, and it reflects your most important personal values and morals used to build your roadmap for living. What is a statement meant to do? It represents what we strive to be, influences our actions and interactions, demonstrates how you put your guiding ideals into practice. It serves as a support system for decision making. It becomes your go-to during difficult situations, especially when there's nobody around that you can talk to or use as a sounding board. How do you build your statement? Decide, take some time. This is not something that you can do in 20 minutes. Once you kickstart the thinking process, these are some questions to guide you. Decide on the values and morals that are most important to you. Decide on your format. Work on your statement over time. Consider sharing it with others for feedback, and keep it somewhere handy. A good place to start is to make a list of all the I wills, the things you commit to, the things that people can expect, and how your actions will reflect that, especially in terms of the kind of actions that you take in exercising your profession. Why should we bother with personal ethics? Strong personal ethics typically translate into worthwhile benefits. You have trusted relationships at home and work, valued contributions at home and work, positive attention from employers, families, and friends, peace of mind, better overall health, emotional stability, and lasting relationships. And you need to also be a little bit careful when you're making your personal ethics statement. Have this in your back of your mind. Are you rationalizing? Are you saying everybody does it? Are you saying nobody will notice? I don't get paid enough to deal with that. It'll take too much time to do it right. Just this one time. It's not like I'm hurting anyone. I'm not a whistleblower. I'm too close to retirement. I'm minding my own business. These are all red flags, dangerous red flags, that as much as possible, you should try to avoid. And I want to say that it's important to, when you commit to a process like this, start small. Just pick one particular area that you're going to work on, and then begin to add, if you see that there's certain areas for improvement in yourself and in the way in which you are exercising your profession, pick a small area. It can be something like timekeeping. Commit to getting on time. And as that is no longer an issue, pick something else. Because if you try to do everything at once, you'll get disillusioned and most likely give up. So, I've come to the end of my time with you, but I just want to say how you choose to deliver your services as a quantity surveyor is a reflection of your character. It's a reflection of who you are. And no one can determine that for you but yourself. So I think we've come to a place as a nation and as individuals where we need to really deeply reflect on who we are, how we do things, and the impact it has. And then take responsibility for the area of influence that we have, and begin to make a difference in those areas. Thank you very much for your time.
Please, a round of applause for Mrs. Esther DeLong. Please clap. Right. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. Full. So much. It's worded, and I do hope that our inductees listened, and even beyond that,
Write it somewhere.
that I believe speaks to the